All right, all right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at South by Southwest with our IRCODE booth. And if you're gathered around, come on and sit down on these chairs with us. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. I'm going to start off with just a small introduction. I'm the CEO and founder of IRCODE. And I'm not going to talk about myself very much because we're here with a friend and a fascinating individual who has an amazing history. I'm just going to say something that Brittany had wrote for me, which is consumer expectations are shifting. Trust and transparency have become the ultimate differentiators in a crowded marketplace. Scott Stornetta, a pioneer in blockchain and digital trust, has spent his career shaping technology that ensure authenticity, security, and value in consumer interactions. In this discussion, we'll go beyond just security and into strategic advantages of trust-driven technology. And Scott is a fascinating inventor and creator, and has a really amazing company that will protect us in this AI world we're in. And I think it's incredibly important, and his passion is in that. But Scott, why don't you give us a quick background and history on yourself and some of the things you've done?
Sure. I'll start with a shout out to my wife, one of the two best decisions I ever made in my life. I guess to kick it off, I actually did the first neural network PhD at Stanford University. So that either tells you how foundational I am in AI, or it tells you how old I am. At any rate, when I graduated from there, I went back east to the old Bell Labs system. And that's where my colleague, Dr. Haber, and I started worrying about immutability of records. And long and short of it, that's what became the foundation for the blockchain. And we like to say that we did our little bit to secure $2 trillion worth of digital assets. That's trillion with a T. And again, our original invention was about creating trusted records. And the last few years, Dr. Haber and I have been focused on, with the rise of AI deepfake, creating trusted identities. And that's really what SureMark is about. If you don't want to get deepfaked, if you don't want to get spam in your inbox, if you always want to be able to have the last word when you're misrepresented in an interview, not that I would ever be misrepresented in this interview, then you need a SureMark credential.
So of course it's always fascinating to hear your history, and I know you've gone through this a few times, but as the godfather and creator of blockchain, which is pervasive everywhere, you have a unique look on how to protect everything, because it's all transparent, it's all out there, and you putting that thought in and creating it on the original scale. And I think what you're doing now with SureMark, because of your history and because of that, makes it so much more compelling that you've now created a technology that could rival the blockchain experience in protecting people's NIL, in protecting their base of it. So why don't you just tell us about SureMark and about what you're doing there, and what makes it so fascinating. And we've had a lot of discussion about it, but I want everyone else to hear it because that's the most important thing.
Well, again, the analogy I draw is what Stuart and I got obsessive about 20 plus years ago was we need to be able to trust the integrity of digital records. And in a similar fashion, what we're obsessed about now is how do we trust the integrity of your digital identity, so that when let's say it's your grandmother's digital identity, and she gets a call, and it's grandson. Oh, grandma, don't tell my parents, but I'm here in jail, and I need you to wire me some money. And this actually happened to my mom because, it shifts all your emotions when you hear that it's a grandson, and when you hear, oh, please don't tell my parents, so no way to verify.
And it's in your grandson's voice.
It's
their
in your
voice.
grandson's voice. And what the FBI says is, well, every family should have a keyword that they can utter, okay? Well, that doesn't scale. We can't say, okay, everyone you know, including all the people you've never met before, you each need to have a little keyword. So just keep track of 7 billion keywords. And with SureMark, you just need one. And everybody can know that it's the real person on the other end of the line that you're talking to. And so that's, in a sense, that's it in its essence.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more important right now than battling deep fakes, than battling weird AI creation, than giving authenticity to the world we're dealing with, where you have AI is getting better and better and better, and it's getting...
And I celebrate that.
Yeah.
Again, I did some of the very early, insignificant, truly insignificant, if you look it up online, research in AI at Stanford, and AI is just going to get better and better. There's not going to be a way to distinguish between an imitation of someone, an impersonation of someone, either in a real-time call or in a video that's created or in an audio that's created. There simply is not going to be a way to distinguish. And with this, you can take a look at anything, a video, audio, a real-time call, and you can trace it to the source and know for a fact whether this really is that person. So that's the problem that we obsess about now.
It's a huge problem, and I think you've created something that solves it, and we just have to get everyone to know we can start doing this. And it's about authenticating what's real, and having someone be able to say, I created this. This is my SureMark. This is my mark on this. I actually did this. This is not someone else's creation. And I think that's what we obsess about also with IRCODE,
right,
and how I started it.
Because, again, to me, the connection with IRCODE is very real, because you're going to be led to all these opportunities, all the products and the different celebrities as you're viewing in real time or looking at a poster or whatnot. You want to be darn sure that the link it's taking to you to is really that person, yeah, or really that, you don't mind paying extra for the Gucci purse, but it'd darn well be a real Gucci purse that you're being directed to.
Yeah, so Scott's creating the proverbial blue check mark, but in the real world.
Right, and it runs across, it's not just confined to a particular social media platform, it's over the top, it's over the entire internet. And in addition, it's not, well, we checked out this person, we made sure that they were that person, trust us, okay? Just like the blockchain, everything's transparent. You can know yourself, this is really that person. You don't need to trust anybody. And I guess there's a little bit of an inversion with trust, right? We'd say, you no longer need to trust these people because the system can inherently be trusted. And so, as I said, just like the blockchain, but we've pivoted from doing it for documents to doing it for individual identities.
Yeah, which is amazing. You brought up a really cool use case. So I was talking about pivoting our technology on the main stage earlier, and Scott brought up a really good point of SureMark's pivots throughout this. It's creating a technology and then figuring out how people use it in the real world. And you gave me a great use case that you guys just figured out, which is really fascinating. I think everybody will appreciate this.
Sure. So again, just to echo the point you made before I give you the use case, it's that you can invent a really cool technology But until you can tell someone what it's actually going to do for them in a particular case, it's just not a product, okay? Technologies are bright and shiny. Products actually solve someone's problem. And one of the things that only in the last month or so we've come to understand is that high visibility people are often interviewed or articles are written about them. And it's not that they're being deep faked, it's that their words are twisted or taken out of context, or, yeah, I said that, but if you listen to the sentence before that, then you'd know that what I really meant was. And so we've created something called Sure Context, where any high visibility individual that's quoted in a magazine article or a newspaper thing or interviewed live, after it's over and it gets posted, as a SureMark credential holder, you can attach clarifying context to it, so that anybody that runs across this article or video or whatever sees the SureMark context. You know it's not just some random Joe that's making the comment. This is really the person being interviewed, and this is setting the story straight. And when you describe that to high visibility people that have been, their words have been twisted or taken out of context, you know, you could talk technology for an hour and that aren't interested. But when you talk about that application, they say, that's what I want. And the same thing for companies. You know, a company is either interviewed or there's an article written about them that takes facts out of context and it gives it bad spin. They want to attach the SureMark context so that anybody that runs across that article, wherever they run across it, sees the little, you know, icon in the upper right corner and it says, here's the real context.
Yeah, and it's different than posting on X or Twitter a rebuttal to that article. And another thing, that article itself having that SureMark in it where you can do it directly there. So it's not just a social media post after the
fact.
Right,
I mean, how does it work in the classical sense, right? New York Times publishes some article about you, blah, 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 blah. They get something wrong. Maybe you write a letter to the editor that shows up a week later. More likely what you do is you back and forth with them for 2 or 3 weeks, and finally they publish a correction on page C13, which no one ever reads, okay? Here, you can instantly post, okay?
Yeah.
And
it's been out for weeks, the damage is already done, so you can't do much about it. But if you can do this, I think you're going to change the world with this, for sure.
Well, we want people to be recognized for who they are. We want them to be able to control their own narrative. Now, you can decide whether you like this person or not, but you need to know exactly what they had to say, and you need to hear it straight from them. I just feel like in this world where it's so hard to separate out truth from fiction, and it's just going to get worse. And it's not just the technology, it's the polarization that we're seeing. You want to see an article, you want to read something, you want to watch something, but then you want the actual context.
Yeah.
So that all the parties get to actually say what really happened.
Yeah, one of the conversations we're working on a visual basis with IRCODE, and Philip and I, who you've met, our Chief Technology Officer, we were talking about clicking on a video that's a clip on a news site, and then being able to actually watch the full video immediately, and talked about that with potentially being able to do that with our technology now, and how we do that with SureMark in coordination with it. Or when you scan an IR code, we have a SureMark registration there, so you can tell this has been curated by the person who created it, and you know it. And it's like, I put this out there, this is my words, this is my artwork, this is my likeness, and taking responsibility for that curation across the board, I think creates an authenticity echo chamber where this is the real source. You're not being curated this by 10,000 websites on Google who have just manipulated the words. This comes right from the source, right from the people. So I think this is incredibly important. If you get this correct, and when you get this correct, I should say, it will be another revolution of something you've created. Because I think, clearly blockchain, everyone built on your idea and created massive wealth from it. But now you can do this in the authentication space.
Yeah.
So I'm terribly excited to see what comes.
We want to do for records. We want to do for individual identity, your identity, what we did for digital records.
Again, it's so easy to accumulate information about someone and then pass yourself off by using those credentials. Oh yeah, you need to know what my mother's last name was. Oh sure, I've hunted that down on the internet. I can even give you the last 4 of my social because that's not that hard to grab. But when you finally say, okay, prove to me that you're this person by using the credential that only you have to respond to this test question.
Wow.
In game over, they hang up.
Wow.
Embarrassing.
That's huge. Wow. Man, I didn't even realize that. Again, another pivot of where you could potentially go with this.
Well, again, like I say, you can talk the technology for an hour and people say, yeah, that sounds whatever. But when you tell them that you can keep them from getting, defrauded or others being defrauded by imitators of you, suddenly everybody, okay, sign me up.
Man, this is for the banking industry, for the financial industry, for, just stock trading and sharing, and even in the crypto world, you could probably end up putting this in.
I think so. Again, I know we have, we're sort of teasing, not talking about the technology deliberately, but it's not that we're not willing to disclose it. Basically, you prove who you are by showing who you know. And you build a network that anchors your identity in the other people that you associate with. And it just creates an impossible problem for a bot or a bad actor to climb. Because not only do they have to fake you, they have to fake, essentially everyone in your network. And it's not unlike, and I apologize for going geek for a minute, with things like blockchains, the safety is that you can't get a 51% attack without taking over the majority of the network. It's the same thing here. They can't fake you because they'd have to take over a majority of all the people that you associate with. And you can just make that an impossible task.
So in order for this to scale at a large basis, what are the challenges you think you'd have to go through?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that question by putting on my venture capital hat, which is I read lots and lots of business plans that include this sentence. And once we become the worldwide standard, then we're going to make a lot of money. And I said, yeah, get back to me on that. Okay. In fact, there's a famous VC quote about how every entrepreneur that's got a big vision wants to tell you how they're going to get from A to Z. And what we really want to hear as investors is, how are you going to get from A to B?
Yes.
And what I really like about the SureMark is that if only one person is using it and lets their followers know that they're using it, already it delivers value. Nobody else in the world needs to adopt it. And immediately, that high visibility individual has a secure connection with their fan base, okay? With nobody else interested. They've already won, okay, an incremental battle. And so you don't have to wait for the network effect to get the benefit.
And once one person uses it, their whole network sees it, it starts growing from there, and it's
The
pervasive.
other thing is, there's this, I don't know if anyone wants to go off into this economic discussion, but a reason a lot of startups fail is they misalign who's paying for it with who's getting the benefit. And here, it's the high-profile individual that is paying. All their followers get to validate for free. And so the person that needs the protection pays for the protection. The person that's just a follower, it's all free. And that way you can run it without any advertising or without any spam or anything else. And so that's also part of why it works.
Yeah, and it's not theoretical. This is in use now. So you're actually doing this with athletes and NIL and that world.
Yeah, we're starting to protect high-profile athletes, politicians that always want to be able to add context to any article that appears on it. It's a compulsive sort of thing. And in fact, this video will appear, and then I will attach my SureMark credential to it. And anybody that downloads an extension for free, without ads, without spam, without anything, can know for themselves that this was me in the thing and easily validate it.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Well, I think we could probably ask one more question, and then then people can talk to both of us about this. Happy to do it.
Great, thanks much. Yeah. I really am Scott Stornetta.
You are. You're not the AI version of yourself. Awesome. Thank you so much.